we've known you for a couple of years, but we want to interview about cars and just all that cool stuff that you do. And I know you do other portraits too. You do portraits and other types of photography, but I think we can, say that cars are kind of your main passion.
For sure. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, thanks for being on the show. Where can we find you?
You can find me on my Instagram. It's at Lighthunter, but it's spelled LGHTHNTR, or www.coreydavis.photography.
We'll put that in the description. First link down there. Go ahead and click. Check out all of his beautiful car pictures. One picture that kind of stands out to me is definitely the picture of Von Miller and all that stuff that he did. I mean, honestly, it's kind of like so like when I'm not like super into car photography, but I see something like that, I'm like, wow, this guy's legit. It builds credibility, and so just having Von Miller in there is just a really, really nice start to your portfolio there.
Yeah, so that was a cool shot. I did that for Dub Magazine, and it was actually a friend referred me to his agent who kind of hooked that up.
That's a good friend right there.
Yeah, and I'm growing up in Colorado. I'm a huge Bronco guy, so getting to meet Von and shoot one of his vehicles, it was pretty amazing.
Yeah, so you're showing up there, and you've never photographed a celebrity before at this point, correct?
Correct.
And so are you a little bit nervous? Are you like good to go? Or, were you intimidated at all? Or
I was definitely nervous going into it. I felt like a little kid. I was googly-eyed, didn't want to mess anything up, wanted to make sure I got all the photos that I needed. But it all quickly wore off once I realized how down-to-earth and humble he was.
Yeah, I figure if I ever photographed a celebrity, it would be kind of like, I might be nervous, but then once you kind of strike up a conversation and start taking photos, it's probably just like photographing anybody else.
Yeah, once you build up that rapport, everything kind of moves very smoothly.
Yeah. So what kind of car did he have?
He had a wide-body Camaro.
Like a new one?
It was one of the newer ones. I think it was like a 2007.
But not like a 60s. 70s.
No, it was a more modern one.
New
and he's very into comics, so it was like a Batman themed one. It's a pretty cool car.
Slack, I bet.
Was it just him there, or was there like a set of people?
So when I was waiting for them, actually a white Range Rover pulled up, and Von Miller jumped out, Chris Harris, Aqib Talib, and TJ Ward, and they all piled out, and my jaw dropped.
You've probably been watching these people on TV for like years, and just like, was this before or after they won the Super Bowl?
This was the same year. This was just before during preseason, so I was pretty amped up.
Yeah, man, that's such a great photo to have in your portfolio. You photographed him like the year that he did the Super Bowl, and man, that's so cool. Did you connect with any other players after that, or?
No, unfortunately, not really. I
remember seeing you made it into Dub Magazine. Oh, that's so sick. And so that's a great credential to have on your resume too. So whenever you go for a car drive, you can be like, I photographed Von Miller, and we photographed this car that he had, and that's a great way to kind of kick in the door there.
Definitely awesome. Kind of build some credibility and some trust.
So you're going up to the Camaro, and like, what's the first thing that you do? Do you set up lighting? Do you?
So funny enough, the car, one of the back rear tire was. The back right tire was flat, so we couldn't move it because there were cool spots around his property that I really wanted to shoot it at. But we had to kind of push the car in front of his garage.
Well, thankfully you had like 3 football players there. So.
Yeah, that probably made it easier.
It's true.
Just hold the camera during that part. Go ahead, guys.
So, yeah, what would happen if it was like just him and he like had a broken arm or something? You're like.
Fortunately, it didn't work out like that.
Yeah, we didn't have to push it too far, thankfully. No injuries occurred.
What if you what if you pulled his shoulder, like you made him move the car and you ruined the Super Bowl?
Yeah, he was the Super Bowl MVP that year too. That I couldn't live with myself.
Do you have to have insurance for this?
Yeah, I was gonna wonder, would that be extra insurance for a gig like that?
I actually do not have insurance on something like that.
Yeah, that's probably a good way.
But you're just starting out. You just got this call from your friend or whoever. You probably weren't even expecting it. And how long? This was like 4 or 5 years ago.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so you set up the lights, and how many lights are set up?
I had 3 speed lights, so they're just the small radio triggered flashes. I had to shoot at pretty much high noon. And it's not the best time to shoot a black car, but
normally you probably shoot that pretty high up on your f-stops, like maybe like f5, 6, maybe 8.
Yeah, so I was trying to like cross light with the sun, just trying to get rid of the reflections and everything. But but made it work.
Yeah, how do you get rid of reflections? Like,
So the main, like an essential part of doing car photography is having a circular polarizer. And so you can really kind of dial in which reflections you have and which ones you don't.
That's a very helpful tool, actually.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never even owned a polarizer or anything, but it's like, you know, you learn about these other genres of photography. I'm like, that's where that's used.
So do you use that for both lenses then? For both your 7200 and your 24-70?
Yeah, so anytime I'm doing car stuff, I did have two of them. I had an incident where my camera strap came off for some reason. I had my circular polarizer on my 7200, and the camera hit the ground, and that polarizer shattered, but it saved my lens.
Yeah.
So I only had one now, but
in the big
could have been worse.
Could be worse. Yeah,
I usually rock
the
two of
lens
them.
is okay. Those lenses are pricey.
Oh yeah,
That's good.
So can you speak on Von Miller and kind of maybe his love for cars a little bit, or did you get much conversation time there?
Yeah, so he's definitely a car guy. I'm not. He has the Range Rover. He had that Camaro, and then he had a BMW i8.
Oh, the electric one?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Very forward.
Spaceship. That was when it pretty much just came out too. So I was like, I'd never seen one of those in person.
Yeah, what's this thing? Yeah.
He's very down to earth. Definitely a car guy. He's a goofy guy, and he's I don't know. I love his personality and what he brings to the team. And
so how did you get into all of this? How did you decide that you were going to do car photography?
So I kind of started in high school because I was a big car guy. I had a WRX, and I put all my money that I had and I was making into that car, and I wanted to kind of show it off. And so with photography, you kind of learn from other people's images, and I wanted mine to kind of stick out. And so I kind of just learned a lot.
So you got into photography because you were into cars?
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that's really cool. So you still care about car photography because you're still into cars so much, but now you're also into photography.
Right. Cars have kind of played a big part in my life. My dad's a big car guy. I grew up playing Gran Turismo, and
yeah, me too.
They're cool, man.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's really cool to get into something that you like a lot, just because you're going to be more interested, you're going to be more passionate about it. You're going to, if you weren't passionate about cars, you might just like take a couple of pictures of your STI or something at some point, and just like, I don't know, just or And what am I
that
trying
might be
to
as
say?
far as it goes. Though.
Right,
That might be as far as you take it. You might not get to the point where you're actually photographing celebrities
but
in their
if you're
cars.
passionate about it, you might, photograph Von Miller. You might get into more magazines. You're gonna
try harder. Yeah, you're gonna try harder to make a better image because you care about it.
Some of my favorite images of yours are actually on Pikes Peak. So they do that race every year, I think.
Yeah, the Pikes Peak International Hill Climb.
Yeah. There's this really cool photo where you're kind of shooting down, and it looks like it's telephoto, and you get like a lot of the alpine. Or the sort of the tundra over there, like in the bottom of the frame, and then you have the car just kind of like right there, kind of.
Yeah, that's a really
third.
It's up there. That's a cool event. I like how it kind of blends. I really like landscape stuff too, so it kind of blends my love of landscape stuff and nature with cars, and it's one of the most unique races or events that I've ever been a part of.
And you do it regularly, right?
Yeah.
So if you do that year after year after year, you kind of build up because there's a lot of spots along that raceway that you could pick, right?
There are. They've kind of been cutting that down a little bit just because safety concerns. There's some foolish people out there, but
yeah, I assume there's a lot of photographers there. How do you make your images stand out from everybody who's shooting there?
Honestly, I think it's if it's either the gear, because you can get like longer lenses to kind of stand out, or it's the locations. So after kind of doing it for a while, you kind of know the good spots.
Yeah.
And you kind of just watch out for the way the light's kind of coming over the crests, or even the weather rolling in, because sometimes it'll be snowing up where you are, and then it'll be sunny down below. So it's
the snow shots will be way better.
Yeah, the snow shots, and fog shots, those kind of stand out.
Yeah, those always look really cool, and makes it seem more dangerous, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, the past few times I've been up there, the fog has been super thick, and you really get kind of cool shots, and they'll even shut it down. You get to kind of walk around the mountain, and
cool. It's
kind of peaceful up there.
So if you shoot something like that, you're basically in the same location for the whole race, right?
So depending on, if they're doing practice runs, you can kind of move around in between. So the cars will run up. They split the course into 3 segments. And so once the cars start coming back down the mountain, that's when you kind of move around.
So you kind of plan that out ahead of time. You're like,
exactly.
all right, I'm going to get this spot, then that spot, then this
Yep,
spot.
exactly.
So you can have 3 different, basically, locations if you plan it right.
Right.
Cool.
Do you ever photograph like private locations or like do you like private collections and stuff?
Yeah, I've done a coffee book table for a client. He's got a big Porsche collection.
Man, I bet that's big money. Like if he has like somebody has like 10 Porsches or 20.
Yeah, he had
wow.
an amazing collection, and I was fortunate enough to be able to be a part of that. And we basically just shot, because this was during the wintertime, we shot all the photos inside his garage and just kind of pushed the cars around. And I did light painting on those ones.
With speed lights.
That's so cool. That's like a side of car photography that I've never thought of. Like a private collector who would want like a photo book of all of his cars. Man, that's so cool. That's like a business model in itself, and you could probably charge so much money for that.
There's definitely a lot of pride that goes into owning some of these vehicles, and especially
those are the kinds of people who want to have that.
Yeah,
book,
when you're at that level, it's their babies.
Yeah, right. Right.
So you show up to this big garage. Are you thinking like detail? Like you want to get more detail shots? Like what are you looking for? Are you looking for like one photo of every car, or just like multiples?
Yeah. So for this, I kind of, since he has so many cars, I wanted to, and they're all super unique, I wanted to highlight all of them. And so I would do basically like a full shot, 3/4. I'd kind of go around the car so you can kind of get an overall photo, and then I would do a bunch of detail shots as well.
So like when you're shooting the detail shots, those are usually just a single shot, right?
Correct.
But when you're shooting the wider shots, that's when you start doing composites and doing multiple images and stuff.
Yeah, so for this one, this was a little while back, and I just gotten into more of the light painting stuff. So I would just set my camera up on a tripod and just kind of paint the car with light, and it gives the paint a really nice kind of sleek, wet look to it.
You still shoot it with the polarized filter, though, yeah?
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then you do a few frames of those, and then should you need to, you can kind of combine them into one exposure.
Yeah, like in Photoshop or something.
Yep, exactly.
Brush them in, brush them out.
So one thing I've noticed with my photography, and I mostly just do portraits, is I've actually switched from having like 50 megapixel cameras down to having 24 megapixels because it's less retouching, less.
Yeah, it's less work.
Less hard drives you have to buy.
Yeah, you need a lot of space. Yeah.
But you shoot with a D850, and I assume like the high megapixel count definitely comes in handy with car shots. Like you want all the detail there. You want to be able to crop in for some of the shots on like Pikes Peak and like action stuff. Just everything, and I assume like one of the main advantages to that camera is also dynamic range. So
Correct.
How many megapixels? It's like 45.
So I wish I had a D850. I have the 800, so I'm at 36 megapixels. But
yeah, that's still
it's a great camera. Just being able to kind of crop in and move things around, and then recover lost detail, because I think technology's come a long way, allowing you to do so.
Yeah, if you're photographing a car on Pikes Peak and there's snow in the background and the car's black or something, like the dynamic range there would come in
bring some of that back for sure.
Yeah, and you don't really get a chance to shoot a lot of those. Like, you just got the one shot, so you got to be able to do it in post.
On Pikes Peak, the weather changes so quickly, and you might miss it the next time. So
I feel like those two types of photography are I mean, they're still car photography, but they're very different. Like, in the way you approach it, the way you have to think about it, the skills and the tools needed. Right.
So if you're doing like a vehicle feature, you have a lot more control, and there's a little bit more room for error. Whereas definitely if you're doing kind of event stuff, kind of photojournalist style, you only get one chance really. So you got to make sure you have everything kind of dialed in.
So if let's say it was the first time you ever did Pikes Peak, what did you do beforehand? Did you go spout the locations ahead of time? What did you do to prep for that to make sure that your shots were better?
Definitely. I talked to a lot of there have been photographers that have been doing that since 40, 50 years. And so I definitely pick their brains to kind of figure out where they go. The automotive world of photography is very small and close-knit. So chances are you probably know someone that knows a friend of yours, or it's a small world. It's kind of cool.
You get in with one, you're in with a bunch.
Yeah, and just be humble. Don't burn any bridges.
Yeah, just ask questions.
So I think with photography, we're all sort of searching for meaning in things that pay us, or things that we like to photograph and stuff. What's sort of the meaning of car photography to you? Like, where do you find joy? Where do you, like, what makes you happy to like think about as you're doing these photos?
I just have a respect for the machines, and I mean, it's kind of like some of the cars that I shoot. They're artwork that you can roll around in, and just being able to share that the way you see it or show it in a different light, I think that really goes a long way.
Yeah, maybe like the curves of a Porsche, or like the headlight of the car, or just all that stuff. I think there's a lot of time and effort that went into it. By the car manufacturer,
Right.
and then by the person who bought the car, and probably did some modifications on it. And there's like a lot of pride there. That's cool.
Yeah, just kind of sharing their love and their passion. It's a fun thing to be able to do, and I'm sure you guys feel the same way with the wedding stuff that you guys do.
Yeah, it's great being able to capture something that you love.
Yeah, you got to find meaning, or I mean, yeah, I definitely have to find meaning in my work, and figure out like what part of this is gonna resonate with the client, and like making people happy is a big part of it too.
For sure.
Yeah, I suppose like if you're photographing like a private collection, it's like that guy is like so proud of all this work you put into everything.
Yeah,
and then, like
people.
Yeah,
they treat their cars better than their kids sometimes.
Yeah, then if you're
amazing.
photographing the car on Pikes Peak, right? You're kind of photographing the guy in the car who just taken all those years to like figure out how to do this thing that he's passionate about too. So it's kind of like sharing passions and helping get photos of that person's like passion, and like how cool the car is too.
Yeah, their journey up till race day.
Yeah,
try and tell their story, I suppose.
Yeah, man.
So, like, talking about race day some more, like, what are some other skills that you bring to race day other than just the locations and stuff? Like, do you implement any other kind of photography stuff? I know that we've seen some shots where you do, like, a series of them in a row, or you shoot a whole bunch of them, or you'll shoot, like, kind of like a shutter drag almost. So,
yeah, I like doing panning a lot. My buddy and I, his name's Steven Sullivan, we do a thing called a pan off, so we try and slow down our shutter as slow as possible, but still get the car crisp. I think we got I got like 1/8 of a second. It's pretty slow, but the car's it's like tack sharp, and when you nail one of those,
stabilization on that lens.
Oh yeah,
so that helps a bit. But yeah, still, I
sure.
mean, when it's moving like 200 miles an hour, and you're
they're cooking. So sometimes I'll switch. I have like my little hold fast. So I'll shoot the long shot, and then as the car's closer, I'll switch to my zoom. So you kind of get two shots in one spot.
Maybe a few more.
Yeah. So Matthew, have you ever photographed cars?
I have photographed limos and stuff at weddings. It's not really something I do. Yeah, but not like Corey. I mean, my pictures don't compare, obviously. Yeah, Corey's photography of cars is really cool.
Thank you.
How about you? Have you ever photographed any cars?
No.
Okay.
No, but it's always interesting to talk about something that I know nothing about.
Yeah, it's just totally different from what we normally do. So it's interesting.
Yeah, I suppose like what would interest me about photographing cars is sort of like the story behind the person in the car. So like if you're going up to race day, are you ever able to get like backstage and like photograph the person like getting into the car and like do some pictures around that?
Yeah,
I think
so
cool.
the unique thing about Pikes Peak is I'm typically higher up on the mountain. So there's a starting line, and basically as soon as the races start, you can't get down the mountain until after the race. Yeah. So you're either at the starting line, midway up, or at the finish line essentially. But kind of, I've done the starting line before, and there's a lot of emotion there because people they're trying to like concentrate, visualize the turns and everything, and that's kind of a cool spot to see all the prep that goes into
There's
it.
probably a lot of photographers there, though. Huh?
Definitely, the starting line's very crowded. Starting line and the finish line, there's usually a ton.
Yeah.
And then there's a spot called Devil's Playground, and that's a very popular location too.
That sounds like a fun place to shoot. Yeah.
So they call it Devil's Playground because lightning strikes up there a lot, and the lightning will bounce around off the rocks.
Oh, that does sound dangerous.
Kind of scary. I've been up there.
In a car.
So if somebody gets into a wreck during like a race like this, like what happens with the photographers? Like obviously, like if you were close to it, you would stop and go help out. Have you ever witnessed something like that?
I have, unfortunately, and it's usually I try and give all the emergency services their space, stay out of the way, and they ask that we be respectful and not take any photos or anything. But I did have one that, so it's called the bottomless pit, and this Porsche came in a little bit too hot, and there's this little rock wall, and this Porsche, he locked his brakes up and slid into this wall. Below there, it's like a 3,000 to 4,000 foot drop.
End of life kind of drop.
Yeah, and this thing just like was teetering on this edge, and I kind of got a sequence of shots.
I saw that. Yeah, I
And
saw that. It's really cool.
Yeah, after I saw his car sitting there, and I sprinted over there. He was pretty shaken up, and I could see why.
Are there any ethics about like posting the pictures or?
For that, they were fine with that. It's just if a driver gets seriously hurt or worse, then they kind of don't want you to
I mean, that makes sense.
point your camera towards that.
That
But
makes sense.
Wow, yeah, that's kind of heavy.
it's a crazy event. Those guys have some balls of steel.
Anything can happen.
Yeah.
Death, crashes.
Mhm.
Oh my god, so crazy. Yeah, the only thing I've seen in my line of work is like a dress losing a button in the back. So.
Yeah, it doesn't get that kind of dangerous for sure. for us.
Humanity.
Yeah, that's exactly. Cool. So, do you still obsessed about photographing your own car? Is that still something that you do, or you're more on other people's cars now? Or
I'm kind of more on the other people's cars. My car's had a good run. It's kind of, with its age, it's kind of gotten a little patina going on. It's not as pretty as it used to be, but I still love it.
yeah, it's like a baby. Do you do anything new with it now? Do you play with any of the new technologies now? I know a lot of people do car stuff with drones these days.
Right.
Or...
I've been wanting to get a drone ever since we played with yours. I've been wanting to grab one of those, but I haven't pulled the trigger yet.
Yeah, my thought is it's kind of pricey, and you have to be very like specific where you use it. You probably can't fly that thing around at Pikes Peak. With that.
Yeah, they're strictly
serious
prohibited on Pikes Peak.
Yeah, make some epic pictures though.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Very cool. So, what kind of stuff do you do in post then? You use Lightroom, you use Photoshop, or do you capture one?
So depending on how I shoot the car, if I'm strobing it at a location, usually it's built up with multiple photos. It's kind of a composite, and so I'll kind of tweak them a little bit in Lightroom and then bring them over to Photoshop and then
you just kind of get the
combine
white
everything.
balance and exposure kind of somewhere. So,
Yep.
like when you stack them on top of each other, they all kind of look the same.
Exactly.
Cool.
Do you have any crazy car stories? Anything that stands out? Like,
So I was shooting out the back of one of my buddy's cars. We were doing a little vehicle feature, and I was sitting in the trunk, and his trunk lid was up. And we're trying to get some rollers, so I usually shoot those. We're
Okay,
trying to go
I can
like
see where this is going.
40 miles an hour, 45. And the trunk caught a little bit of wind, and it just like smacked me right in the back of the head.
Yep. So that
Yeah.
That's like a helmet shot next time, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Give him the
did you
helmet.
still get the shot? Or
I got the shot. And then all the ones after that were blurry.
Maybe rent a truck, lay in the back of a truck.
Flatbed,
Yeah, flatbed be a little safer.
have you ever photographed a car that you just thought was ugly? You're like, I don't see the beauty in this thing at all.
like the Cybertruck.
Yeah, I mean, the Cybertruck, it's got that retro feel to
Do you
it.
like the Cybertruck?
I
Man,
kinda
people
like
are
it.
people are
Yeah.
on one side or the other about the side. I'm not a truck person, so to me, like I don't get it.
It's
But
like a moon
Yeah,
DeLorean
it's
or
targeted
something.
towards me. I'm a nerdy guy in his 30s who drives an SUV, so it's definitely targeted towards me. But as a photographer, it just makes no sense whatsoever. Like, driving, you can only drive 300 miles on like the $70,000
Mhm.
one or whatever. So I couldn't get to my jobs. You're going to be standing out a lot. So like if you show up to a shoot or something, it's like, whoa, I'm here. Like
but
get
you'd
ready.
take tons of
Yeah.
pictures of your car if you had a Cybertruck.
Yeah,
Like
I
that-
mean, I
that would
think
get you taken
it's a very
off.
conflicting design. I like things that are polarizing, and so when I saw this thing, I was like, do I hate this? Do I love this? You
I think
know?
that's what most
And-
people thought. They're like, maybe I hate this, but maybe I don't. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
What is this thing? Is it a
yeah.
joke or is it real?
Yeah, so it's so, I mean, it is refreshing on one end because
Mhm.
it's like trucks have looked the same. Like every truck is the freaking same. Like you could
Right.
replace like an F-150 with like a Dodge truck and like nobody would care.
Yeah.
And like I don't know, it's just so cool that somebody's like innovating and doing something new. It's also a good marketing ploy because like when you see that thing out on the road, you're just
Yeah, it's
everybody's
pretty
gonna be
radical.
like what in the heck is that?
It looks a
But-
little militant to me. I'm not gonna lie, especially in the matte black. It looks very
It
serious.
looks very Blade Runner, very 80s, very
Oh, yeah.
retro
yeah, it
future.
looks like Terminator-esque.
Mhm.
They got to fix
Yeah.
those bulletproof windows, though. Or-
Yeah, that was a
Have you
fail.
seen
They
it?
should have tested that beforehand.
Have you seen the inside of it? Like It has this granite kind of countertop almost.
Yeah, it has a
on the
granite
inside.
countertop, like
And
in my
like
kitchen.
what happens if you get into a crash? You're just gonna hit your head on this granite countertop. I see no place for airbags. It seems like the most dangerous thing. It's made out of stainless steel. If you hit somebody, it's gonna demolish any other car on the road.
It does seem dangerous.
Yeah,
Yeah, I hadn't thought about
intense.
any of that. It has cameras and stuff in it though, so maybe we'll run into stuff.
Yeah, but yeah, if you're like
Hopefully.
a nerdy photographer looking into buying that, like it's still $40,000 to $70,000 depending on which model you get. Think about how many trips you could do that. Besides making that vanity purchase, you could just go out and do something you love, like take photos here. Like if you love car photography, you could go take a trip out to like Europe and photograph the cars that you love, like on a racetrack or
go to a like Ferrari factory or something.
Yeah, you can do so many things with like $40,000 and like as a photographer, I'm always trying to budget. I want to like have, like I want to be able to do my passions, and I want to be able to go out and do
I don't think that they designed the Cybertruck for starving artists. I think it was made for like tech nerds who had like 6-figure jobs in the Silicon Valley. I think that's who they were kind of aiming that thing at. That wanted something that was way different. That thing is way different for sure.
Yeah.
And in a year or two, you're probably gonna be taking pictures of that thing.
I could see that.
Yeah, it won't be long till a bunch of Broncos are driving around in that thing.
Well, one thing about it though is if you're a videographer, I think it's like maybe not directed, but for videographers in a way, because it's going to be silent and you're not going to you're going to be able to shoot out of the back of it. It looks like there's lots of attachments.
Just turn on that autopilot feature.
Brilliant.
But yeah, you can put your crew in the back. You can drive, and there won't be any noise in your video. You can use some audio, and it'll be nice and smooth, and you'll be able to haul all your video equipment around too. So I think maybe there'll be some like videography studios who end up buying one of those for work. I think that's kind of interesting too.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Just matte black. It's like kind of like a stealth movie.
Have you photographed any other EVs?
Just the ones that ran on Pikes Peak, the race cars I've
They
shot.
have this up there. Oh, that's cool.
So I took one.
Electric cars are getting fast.
The one he set the record 2 years ago. Romain Dumas, he had a Volkswagen electric car. That car was pretty wicked. I have a pretty cool shot of that one coming up the mountain.
Volkswagen says they're getting all in on electric cars. They're really all about it.
I mean, they're definitely in the future, but there's something about the smell of gasoline, and I don't think they'll ever get that out of me.
No, it'll be the next generation. They'll just be like, you guys like the gasoline stuff.
So we're almost to break here, but what are some cars that you want to photograph in the future? Maybe we could end on that.
Honestly, I want to. I've only seen a few of the new Supras. I think they're really good looking cars, and they've grown on me. I'd like to shoot a few more of those. Exotic wise,
what's your dream car to photograph? If you could photograph one like bucket list car, what would it be?
That's tough. I'm a big F40 guy, and I've never really like shot a Ferrari F40. I've seen them in the wild, but being able to shoot one of those would be one of my faves.
Nice. Yeah, well, I hope you get that unicorn car at some point.
Yeah. Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Corey Davis, check him out on Instagram.
We're going to break right now. We'll be back in who knows how long, but we'll be back in a second. Photo Footage is currently on break. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you every Sunday for a new Photo Footage podcast. Now back to Photo Footage. Yeah, you're mainly a Nikon shooter, and you haven't actually gone to the mirrorless cameras yet, but I just kind of want to get your thoughts on going mirrorless. Are you eventually going to do it? Are you eyeing one camera?
Yeah, so I've kind of been holding out. I've loved using the Sonys. I've shot with both of your guys before, whether it be the Fuji or the Sonys. I've been holding out for Nikon to come out with something, and they did come out with the Z6 and Z7, and I'm not quite there yet. I was thinking about pulling the trigger, but after kind of looking at comments of other people and reviews, I don't know that the autofocus is there yet for my needs specifically. Yeah,
you photograph a lot of cars on like Pikes Peak and stuff, so I can imagine like the autofocus has to be like spot on, and with those long lenses, it like really has to be fast.
I rely on tracking a lot too, like servo stuff. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. So
Are you impressed by the Nikon cameras and the lenses that they rolled out at first, or?
At first I think their roadmap. Honestly, I think I wish they'd kind of switched some things around. but I think where they're going is a good place. I like the idea of them kind of branching out and going to mirrorless because
That's like
it's
one
necessary.
One
Yeah,
of
it
the
seems like-
downsides, though, I think, of like going to a mirrorless system that they're starting afresh with
Yeah.
is they don't really have all that stuff yet. So
Right.
you have to wait a while for them to release enough equipment
Exactly.
for you to
I
fill your
like how-
bag with.
Yeah, I like how Canon went into it more because they came out with all these lenses like all at once, all the pro lenses that you like
Mhm.
absolutely need. I guess like, you know, at first a lot of photographers are probably adapting glass, and so I don't know, maybe is that like a thought like going into
Yeah,
a
did you
mirrorless
maybe
camera?
do that? Because I hear they have a good adapter.
I would definitely adapt my lenses. I mean, they're like my bread and butter, and if I could save a little bit more money, I mean, I'm all for that.
Or maybe just to get you into it, and
Right.
then once you're like, all right, now I have this, and I paid for it, now I'll get the next lenses that I need.
My dad picked up a Z6, and he's actually has the adapter, so I've played with it a little bit, and there's just something I'm not sure if Nikon can update the firmware a little bit to kind of fine tune that autofocus
Well,
aspect.
that's what happened with the Fujis, because the XT2 when it came out was horrible with
Yeah.
autofocus, and over like I don't know, maybe 2 years and 4 iterations, it got awesome.
The cool thing about Fuji is the way they update, though. I mean, they really listen, and I feel like they're constantly pushing out updates. Nikon sometimes I feel like it takes a little while, but
Yeah,
it's-
Nikon and Canon are slower moving. I think.
Yeah. Are there any other concerns like going with the Nikon mirrorless cameras like the Z7 and Z6? Like, are there dual card slots on those?
there's only one. There's only one slot. I think it's an XQD slot.
Oh, huh.
So
Yeah, well, you can't really. Yeah, like a lot of professionals can't actually upgrade to that because you know, like I mean, I wouldn't at least because I need a backup. I've had a couple of cards fail in the past, and I'd be out thousands of dollars.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think there's two different camps on that.
Yeah.
Some people say that newer card, they're bulletproof and they won't fail, so there's nothing to worry
good
about.
point.
But it's I don't know.
But maybe it's just a way to make it cheaper too, because they want to get into the market of cameras that aren't so expensive.
Yeah, isn't the Z6 is about around $2,000 or is it less?
The Z6 is a little bit cheaper. The Z7, it's the higher megapixel one.
Is that the one you'd go for?
Probably.
But then it really
yeah.
competes with the Sony, because you really want to compete with the
Yeah, the
Sony
A7R
on price.
60 megapixels, and that one
Mhm.
is I think 3,200. I might have that wrong, but yeah, I don't know. Like,
Sounds a little more
Mirrorless,
pricey.
I'm definitely gonna make the dive and the jump. I just don't know when yet.
Yeah. Have you ever? I mean, are you considering Sony? Are you considering other camera brands? Like, I guess I just kind of want to know the position of somebody with all this Nikon glass who
Yeah.
has like the D800, and you know you spent years, you know,
Collecting,
accumulating-
yeah.
And you also have a Fuji.
I do have a Fuji. So
yeah,
the story of the little X100. I love that camera. The very first one I got, it kind of like it changed the way I
They're
did
fun little
photography.
cameras,
I love it.
yeah,
I
they
just love
change
the
things, for sure.
quirkiness. So I sold that one, upgraded to the X100S, sold that, and I have the F right now. And
I guess
honestly,
the V's on the horizon.
yeah, I've been kind of thinking about going the Fuji route. I just love how they work. I think they're cool looking. I'd still probably keep my Nikon gear for more kind of commercial shoots, but for a little bit more kind of personal stuff and having kind of like a second body just to kind of liven things up. Honestly, the X Pro 3 is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Yeah, for sure.
autofocus
very
is really
quirky,
good on
yeah.
that camera. Like if you know
Yeah.
something to track around cars, you'd probably do pretty well with it.
Yeah, I'm kind of. I became like a digital hoarder, and I like got like addicted to Instagram for a while. So like an X Pro 3, like kind of with all my like dialing back of all this stuff,
Right.
like kind of it's appealing just because of the screen and like I don't know. But there's
It's
so much.
hipster and everything, but
Yeah.
I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah, for sure. Well, there's so much geeking out about specs all the time, or
Mhm.
this video feature, that video feature, and it's cool that a camera company actually did something like a little bit different
I
to
agree.
do that. But would you ever go like?
Well,
like
I mean,
XT2
Nikon
or-
kind of did something like that too. They have like a .95 lens, right?
They do
That was like
knocked.
way out of left
Oh
field.
yeah.
And
Yeah,
they
what do
also
you-
have like a 105, 1.4 lens. They have some pretty
Mhm.
interesting glass for sure.
They
Like
do have some cool
if I shot
glass.
Nikon, I would definitely look at some of that stuff.
Yeah, those two lenses are pretty cool that you just mentioned. I carry my X100 everywhere, and I think while I do like the 35 mil on it, just having something
Yeah, a few more.
a little bit
options.
more versatility would be kind of cool. So
Yeah, for
I
sure.
don't know.
Yeah, so you're still on the fence. You're still a
I s-
Nikon DSLR guy, but
Yeah.
you don't know.
Still a Nikon DSLR guy, and then maybe a Fuji mirrorless guy down the road. I don't know. I love them both. They're both
Yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome.
sounds like your Nikon is your professional setup, and like you're gonna make a decision about that like later on, and you're gonna probably eventually want to go mirrorless. I mean, it's not like that much of a game changer. Like I could easily shoot on DSLR still.
Right.
I mean, it's not.
But it's like the platform of the future. Like the
sure.
DSLR is on its way out, while the mirrorless is going to continue to innovate, and
Yeah.
you kind of want to stay on that train if you want to be like a future tech kind of.
If I want to drive the new Tesla Cybertruck.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, kind of the main thing with mirrorless cameras is you can just see your exposure, so you don't ever have to chimp or anything. Like, I mean, but that's like just that one thing, and like you're probably so used to shooting the D800 that like. Maybe you don't need to upgrade for a while, and you probably have the luxury to not, upgrade to a Z6 or Z7 right away. It's still a modern sensor.
I'm definitely curious to see what they do down the road. I mean, I think that those two cameras were a good starting place for Nikon, but I want to see what's
That's the
next.
thing is, like, I usually don't like to buy a first iteration of a camera because it doesn't really have all of its bugs worked out yet. But usually by Mark II or Mark III, it's pretty rockin'. Or if they do a lot of firmware stuff like Fuji or...
So if you eventually do go Nikon mirrorless and you upgrade the camera body, would you just bring over the legacy glass, or is that a good plan for Nikon photographers?
It's hard to say. It depends on how much I like that platform, because I love like my 85-1.4 and like Nikon. They have some good legacy. The G series glass it's great, but those new lenses that they're starting to come out with for the Z mount, it's appealing.
Yeah,
but if you're already kind of like adjusted to these primes and you're kind of accustomed to having these certain lenses, and they don't exist for the new camera, it makes the new camera less appealing.
I agree. Yeah, just kind of hold out for a little bit longer.
The big Nikon marketing play when it first came out was that the mount size was bigger, and so they could make better lenses. And so I think on those wide angle lenses, you're going to see some improvements. But I mean, I've noticed with the mirrorless cameras, like 85s are all kind of the same, they're going to be like similar weight and stuff, but really sort of on the wider end, then you can get like smaller lenses, and in some ways they're going to be sharper in the corners and stuff like that.
That was something that Nikon didn't, because so like when Canon switched, so Canon and Nikon basically had similar size mounts, and Nikon never changed it, they just kept it the same. But Canon switched to the EOS stuff in the 80s, and they made it a little bit bigger to adjust for that problem. And so they came out with a whole new lens lineup then and just started over. But Nikon didn't do that. They decided to stay with the original thing until now, when everybody has to move different cameras. So in my opinion, that's a bigger plus for how Nikon did it than Canon did. Because Canon kind of gouged you for lenses twice. Well, Nikon's just doing it the once, and you're going to switch cameras anyway.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. Yeah,
it's just further down the line because you're going to have to wait for all those lenses to come out. So, like, if you're like, itching at the mirrorless thing right now, and you're shooting Nikon, it's kind of infuriating to have to wait 2 or 3 more years for all that glass to be available.
Yeah, when I was on Canon, I was just like salivating at all these like mirrorless cameras coming out, and then
wishing I had those features and those functions. They're not doing it.
Nikon's kind of a different beast because they've always delivered on spec. So like with Canon, I always felt like there was this like big corporate man like looking over all my camera specs and being like, I'm going to take this out. I'm not going to give you 4K, 4K and 24. I'm only going to do it in 30 frames a second. Like,
but Nikon, Nikon always had like the better options. Like Nikon's always had more focus points, had bigger sensors, had a lot more stuff that we kind of wished out of our Canons. But Canon had the great glass, and that was our like big rivalry. But now there's not Canon and Nikon anymore. There's a whole bunch of them.
And like all lenses in the last 5 years are more or less kind of like on the same equivalent. There's not like Canon in the late 90s, early 2000s, like up until like 2010, they're like Canon really made like the glass, and like everybody is kind of like caught up in my opinion. I mean, even like you look at like a Zeiss Otis or something, and you're going to be paying 5 times as much for that lens, and then you can get just as much sharpness out of like other lenses,
or close. I mean, close enough that you wouldn't notice with your eye.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. Are there any other like camera brands that like interest you, or you're?
I mean, Sony's always really cool. I'm just used to Nikon and using Nikons.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a Nikon user,
so it's like, I don't know. I'm kind of, I think those are my 2 go-tos for right now.
Yeah, but so you have a X100. Is it an X100S, X100T?
It's the X100F.
But he also had the S.
Yeah, I've kind of like gone the whole.
I've had all those too. Yeah, I've had them all too. I just haven't had the. Well, I haven't had the. I did have that.
You did, yeah.
Yeah, I've had them all. There's a V that's coming.
I know. Might have to sell mine.
Yeah. So what do you love about this camera? It's like it has one lens on it. It's simple, so you don't have to like buy other lenses. You're not tempted to buy other lenses, and so this is like your carry around, or
It's kind of like a party camera. I just kind of throw it in my bag and take it wherever.
It's easy to take with you all the time.
Super portable.
Yeah.
And it's fun.
It is fun. Just the way the dials work on it. It's very analog, and I think that kind of I like that. I like the kind of filmic feel, and that kind of is why I think I like that X Pro 3. I mean,
That's why I like switching to Fuji, because all the cameras are like that, and when I'm out in the world
Just the
making,
clicks
I don't have to like think about menus anymore. It's just twisting dials, and it's really a throwback. It feels really, really a lot more like you're in the moment and you're part of photography, and you're not like thinking too much like a textbook. And you're more just turning some dials and making.
They're cool little cameras, and it's kind of refreshing after using the Nikon to switch over to something like that. You just kind of think less and shoot more and enjoy the process.
do you shoot JPEG or RAW on those? I know that they have really nice JPEG files.
So I usually do both. Their film sims are really, really cool on there. The
That's
black
how I'll
and
do
white.
it too. I'll have like the JPEGs go to card 2, and then I'll have the
Yeah, they're neat little cameras.
the RAWs go to 1.
yeah, for me, sometimes I'm shooting personal work, and then it just like goes into my hard drive, my like 20 terabyte RAID, and just sits there for years and years and years. Like I have like 10,000 photos I haven't touched.
You haven't seen more of your stuff come out from like a while back.
Oh yeah. At Nick J Sparks on Instagram, I just started that second Instagram up. I'm posting some personal work. I'm finally shooting more, and I'm still hoarding all my photos from Thailand, but I'm eventually getting those back out there. But the X100F would be an awesome travel camera.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, so you just throw that in your bag and you're good to go. Have you ever taken it on any trips or anything?
Yeah, I've gone. I can use that as like my second body sometimes if I want to shoot with a longer lens on my D800. It's gone to
cool.
Miami with me. I took it to Ecuador. It was all road trips all over the place.
Nice.
And it's just easy to have it like in your bag, because it's just always set up, and the lens on it is so small.
Yeah.
The whole thing is small. It's bigger than like the GR, the Ricoh, but it's still pretty small.
Yeah, I really love the Ricoh GR2. That was my
That's
go-to.
a cool little camera.
Yeah, and I suppose like the one downside I'd see in the X100F is that it wouldn't be quite pocketable, so it has the lens protruding, whereas the Ricoh GR2 actually like goes back in. Yeah, so it was just I could just throw it in my pocket and then go. But I mean, it's still portable enough to like throw into a small bag, throw into a coat pocket, stuff like that.
Nikon doesn't really have a camera like that, do they? A fixed lens, full frame, or even crop. That's cool.
No, not like that.
Yeah. Any other insights you can give on the Fuji X100F?
Buy a bunch of second batteries, like some.
Yeah, those are batteries.
They do go
all
through
the
batteries.
Fuji stuff just needs batteries, except for the GFX. The GFX is actually pretty good on batteries.
Yeah. So the lens on the X100F, how's the bokeh? Is it like good enough for everything?
I think it's pretty good actually.
Yeah.
For being a 35 mil, it's really pleasant bokeh on it.
Nice. And then is it sharp enough? You're happy with the sharpness? And
I am. And I think my favorite feature on that camera is the built-in ND filter that you can switch on or off. So you can, if you like to shoot at f2 all the time, you can shoot at f2 all the time.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's a pretty neat little camera.
Yeah, and then autofocus. How's autofocus?
It's quick. It's very snappy.
Compared to the X100T?
So I didn't have the T, but I had the S. Compared to the S, I think it's an upgrade. And then
I had the T. Yeah, it's better than the T.
Yeah.
It's definitely better than the T. Anyway, we got way on a Fuji tangent here. I thought we were talking about Nikons.
Whoops.
We're talking about everything. This is the second segment of the podcast here. And what Nikon glass do you have?
So I've got the 50mm 1.4. I have an 85 1.4. I've got the 7200 VR2. I have a 105 macro lens. I've got a cool old school Zeiss lens that Mathew gave me actually. And then a 17 to 35 2.8.
Nice. So what's your favorite lens out of all those?
Probably the 85 1.4. I love how that
renders wasn't photos. The vintage Zeiss lens I gave
I like the primes. It used to be the 7200. That thing would like never leave my camera, but it's just like carrying a bazooka around.
It's big. It's big. Once I got a 135, I didn't really use the 7200 much after that. because it's like half the size, but it can still get the reach.
And that 105-1.4 that they came out with it's pretty
Do you
cool
have that
lens too.
lens?
No, not yet.
I admire that lens.
That's
that
a
lens
cool
looks
lens.
cool.
Yeah.
If I was gonna shoot Nikon, I would definitely own one of those, and I would also shoot that. I think it's a 50.95, even though it's manual focus.
Mhm.
I'd probably still want that. You know, seems like a fun lens to have, especially if you were gonna shoot that with the adapter on the mirrorless.
Yeah,
I bet that would be rocking good.
That'd be
yeah,
cool.
I love how like every lens in history that's 100 millimeters has all been macro, and then Nikon and Sigma and like all these different camera manufacturers all come out with the hundreds that are like 1.4. They're super compressed. You can get like just razor thin bokeh,
Yeah, they're
bokeh depth.
I remember
cool.
a bunch of years ago, like when I first got into photography, I did a bunch of posts about the 100mm on my blog and stuff, and how I wish there was a 100mm 1.4 so it could be faster, so I could use it for portraits. And man, people blasted me about that, saying that was silly and no one would ever do that. And here we are, like a decade later, and they're everywhere.
Here we are.
Yeah, internet comments are so weird. So like sometimes I'll be like walking around, like maybe I go to Walmart or something, and then like you get all these like anonymous comments, and, and I'm like
Walmart?
watching. No, like on the internet. But I'm
Oh,
like walking.
wow.
I'm like all these people at Walmart. I would never take advice from any of these people. But then like I'm listening to this like internet person. Like it's crazy. Like
Right, you can't let them
I'd
get
much
in your
rather
head
be a
too.
producer than a than a commenter. But
Yeah, you can't let that get to you too much.
For sure. The trolls.
The trolls, yeah. It's
Yeah.
definitely a different.
Yeah. Is there another Nikon lens you want to?
They have like that 200mm f2.
Like if you're doing what you do with cars, that'd
Yeah.
probably be. I mean,
I would want some like
big.
the big Canon
Like, what's that
style,
thing cost? Like $4,000 or $5,000.
Yeah.
Like that thing's a
It's
beast.
got
That's a
VR in
monopod
it.
kind of
Definitely.
setup.
Yeah, it's like a sniper rifle style.
Yeah, like a ginormous,
Yeah.
ginormous kit.
So what does a car photographer need in this kit?
I would say just
Yeah, if you were just getting started, you didn't have much money, you want to do cars.
definitely a wide zoom. I would say anywhere between 16 to 35 mil.
Do you
I think
use the
that's perfect
16
range.
side a lot? You get really wide like that a
So
lot?
sometimes, like if you're doing like an engine-based shot or something, and you want to kind of like
Still have a lot
use
of
the
detail.
distortion or something, I think that's
Oh,
I've
to kind
used
of make
that
the
a
engine
lot.
pop a little.
Yeah, I've used that a lot.
Hmm.
And then I think having like a 70-200 zoom lens, like a telephoto, just so you can kind of hone in on details of different parts of the car. I think that's
Either
helps
that, or
out a
maybe you
lot.
could do it with a macro.
yeah,
If you just have
definitely
like 100 macro, because it's the car's not gonna move much.
right.
That's like for like if you were gonna shoot it like in a studio environment where you
Yep.
kind of had like car that you were gonna.
Yeah, if you're doing like a feature or something, you could definitely get away with a macro.
Yeah, but if you were doing like event stuff, so you're saying like if you do both those types of photography, it'd be more advantageous to have a 7200 because you could use it for both.
I would think so.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Interesting.
let's break one more time here, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about news topics. I definitely want to talk about the XT4 rumors, the A7R or A7 IV rumors, and a couple other things here.
Oh, I
think,
want to talk about what's going on with the Nikon service centers.
Oh yeah, I saw that too. Yeah, let's break and we'll get right into Nikon service centers and some more news topics.
Awesome.
Photo Footage is currently on break. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you every Sunday for a new Photo Footage podcast. Now back to Photo Footage.
I'd say they're screwing over. But it sucks if you're a Nikon photographer, I would think, these days, because I guess recently Nikon is no longer going to allow the tools and the equipment and stuff to be used by authorized resellers and retailers. So the people who actually repair the cameras outside of Nikon's authorized facilities are no longer going to be able to do so.
I don't know. Corey, do you have Nikon fanboy tears?
I do. I just hope that nothing happens to my camera right now.
Right, because that's the thing, is you got to
Yeah.
ship it so much further now. You can't just go to a local camera shop and have it
Right.
repaired.
Yeah. Okay. So like basically like I when I first saw this news, I thought that it was that Nikon was like shutting down the official repairs, but what you're saying is they're basically shutting down just like authorized resellers. So like if a local camera shop was gonna do a repair on a Nikon, they couldn't anymore.
That's my understanding. Is they're not gonna sell those retailers the tools to work on
Mhm.
Nikons
Okay.
or the parts they would need to swap
Huh,
out.
that's so weird.
Yeah,
Right.
starting I guess in March of 2020.
Yeah.
So between now and then you'll be okay. But after that, you're gonna have to send them to.
Yeah.
I guess they have 2 facilities, one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast.
Right.
So they're still in America. You wouldn't have to ship it to Japan or anything, but
Well, I'm sorry, Corey. My heart goes for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's
Knock on
a
wood,
bummer.
nothing happens.
I mean, they're pretty sturdy, right?
They
You
are.
haven't had to ship them off to
Yeah,
Nikon
you'll be
too
okay.
often.
Hope my
All
shutter lasts.
Right, that's the thing.
All right,
So that's something happening in the world of the photography this week. What else is going on?
all right, so we have some XT4 rumors. It's going to be a little bit heavier and thicker, so 5 to 6 ounces heavier to be specific, and it's going to be a little bit like, I guess this would be wider, or it's going to have more depth for the IBIS system. So it looks like they're taking over the XH1.
They're kind of merging those two technologies.
Yeah, they discontinued that one, and it looks like the XT4 might be both, but hopefully it's a little bit smaller than the XH1 is my first thought. But yeah, I was looking through all these rumored specs, and nothing sticks out that much. We have 6K 60 frames a second, which is a pretty impressive video feature, and IBIS, and it's heavier. So there wasn't too much. It doesn't sound like
it's still pretty early. Like that, the XT3's only been out for a year, so usually they refresh those cameras every 2 or 3 years. So the rumors are still pretty early. There still could be other things to add to it. But from my perspective as a photographer, those aren't really features I want. I don't want my camera to weigh more or be bigger. I don't need IBIS. Like, it's not super exciting.
Yeah, it's not a very exciting time for photographers with these new camera releases where I'm just kind of sitting here twiddling my thumbs like, are they going to make something for me? All the features are just video specific. So it was kind of like that with the XT3. So if they don't upgrade something photography-wise, then how are you going to make these photographers upgrade? Unless they want to go start YouTube channels. Like, I don't know what the appeal to...
Who does that?
Yeah, how many photographers do that, right?
Yeah, what would you like to see in an XT4? Like, if you... photography-wise, more megapixels, or
I like megapixels.
Yeah, from a car photography perspective, I think more megapixels would maybe make you consider one over a Nikon. I don't know.
Perhaps. I'm kind of ingrained in the Nikon, but there's, I don't know, my X100 and the Fuji Allure is there, so
Yeah,
it's kind of, I'm gonna be patient and just wait and watch. Wait till one of you guys pick one up.
yeah, try out Matthew's first.
Right.
Exactly.
There's going to have to be some major changes in that, because I feel like the XT3 was kind of a letdown for me.
Yeah.
Well, if I pick up an A7 IV and you want to try it out and consider switching over to the dark side over here, the Sony, the tech god sphere, you can definitely try it out. So it's kind of like the same story though. So like, give me some photography features. We have a variable low pass filter, which I don't know, might be nice in some really bright light, but I mean, I'm constantly like kind of okay with my max shutter speed most of the time. So it's kind of a, low pass filter. Okay, so
I was going to say, that's going to go on the sensor,
okay, it's
right?
for like Moray. Sorry, I read that a little bit wrong, but yeah, it's
so that's going to decrease sharpness.
Yeah, it's still kind of a video thing. So you can take out Moray more in photography than video.
But that's going to decrease sharpness. And a bunch of years ago, we were buying cameras that didn't have them and spending more money on them not to have it.
The 800E.
EOS R.
The EOS R. Yeah, exactly. The 800E. That doesn't excite me.
So one thing on the photography end that's actually talked about here is multi-shift, and so that's a thing where you put your camera on a tripod, and then it does like 3 different readouts, and then combines them all into like, I think the file here should be over 100 megapixels. So you're gonna have a 24 megapixel sensor from the rumored specs. I don't know, the specs did look pretty legit.
But it's like HDR still?
No, it's 3 different shots, and basically it uses the IBIS to move the sensor around 1 pixel, and so it uses like one pixel, or it's, I don't know, basically triples your resolution. So or more somehow. So the A7R IV, it's able to capture like a 200 megapixel image for stationary subjects, and the dynamic range is also increased. But for me, I don't shoot it on a tripod at all. It's just like something about a tripod. So it's not an appealing picture to me.
But if maybe you were doing landscapes or car stuff, like you'd probably use those.
Yeah,
like landscapes or like real estate, like architectural or products photography, something like that.
So I mean, I guess that's
cool.
actually, now that you guys mentioned it, I think that's actually more interesting than I initially thought, because if you're doing stationary stuff, you can add triple the resolution or more. And then it's saying that we're going to move from just one UH2 or UHS2 card slot to 2 now. So both cards will read at the same speed, which
it has 2 card slots now. It's just one is regular,
one is UH1 and then one is UH2.
Gotcha.
So Yeah, one card always buffers faster.
So
and
then,
it slows
if you
down.
were like writing to both cards, there wouldn't be a slowdown anymore. It'd be the same.
Yeah, everything would be exactly the same. I mean, that's a nice little upgrade. I mean, I think with like Canon and Nikon not like doing the dual card slots, I mean, just having dual card slots is really enough for me, and that's what I'm mostly concerned about. But for anybody who's doing action shots, I mean, this is a nice little upgrade because the buffer's going to clear out faster if you're
Right.
writing to both cards and stuff. So
Yeah. Totally.
yeah, and then you know, like the Fuji X-T4 rumor, it's looking like it's going to have 6K video recording, which 4K is already enough for me. So
Yeah, I don't know anyone that's doing 6K.
yeah,
Thought it would go 8K,
yeah. So
16K.
yeah, with these specs right here, I don't really see anything too much that's going to make me, you know, buy an A7 IV over the A7 III, unless the ISO and dynamic range was improved. Then it would.
Or maybe
have
if the
to consider it.
processors were a lot faster.
Yeah.
No, you know. Yeah, I mean your camera's snappy enough now.
Yeah.
You don't feel like.
Yeah, like auto. Yeah. Yeah,
So,
just yeah. I mean, it
those
all
are
just
some of the
depends
rumors,
on
huh?
stuff that are that we don't currently know about, like all the text. I mean, all the sort of techie sensor things for me. So I don't know. I guess we'll have to see how that shapes up a little bit down the road. We'll definitely follow up there. All right, so this week the Mac Pro is shipping. We have configurations from $6,000 to 1 whole year's salary for most Americans, $52,599.
And that's without a display.
Yes, but without a display.
That's just
So-
the computer.
Yeah, I think that this is meant for for movie studios.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. That's for major, or maybe rendering
Yeah,
of large like files for some other computer programs. I don't see
yeah,
photographers using it much.
yeah. I mean, I think it's total overkill for photographers. Like, don't even think about buying this thing unless you're doing some sort of video editing with lots of like layers and lots of like
Yeah.
rendering things.
I mean,
and
for
color grading.
photos and like for Photoshop and for Lightroom
Yeah.
or even Capture One, like you'd be fine with an iMac or an iMac Pro. You don't need to have a computer of that size
Yeah,
in
I
most
agree.
instances.
Yeah. What do you think, Corey? If you just had $6,000 laying around, would you rather buy this or make a down payment on a Cybertruck?
Probably, I might get a little more use out of the Cybertruck.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have some advice for photographers who are who maybe like looked at this and they were thinking about it. Maybe they're just an amateur with lots of money, but I mean, if I were you, I would definitely consider spending the $6,000 on a trip rather than on this computer. You don't actually need this for photography, so.
You could get away with a computer that's half the price or less. I mean,
Yeah,
Oh,
you,
for
could,
sure.
you could build one for.
yeah, you definitely don't need that much machine.
Yeah, so this comes with 8 to 28 cores and 32 gigabytes to 168 gigabytes of RAM. And instead of paying $6,000 for this or more, you could just use Smart Previews. So what Smart Previews do in Lightroom is they build 12 megapixel files, and then every file you'll look at is just 12 megapixels. They're easy to go through, and they're like DNGs and optimized for Lightroom, so it'll speed up your Lightroom immensely. You shouldn't have any delay after you click that little box in there, so bam, saved you $6,000. It has up to 8 terabytes of SSD storage, and instead of spending $6,000 on the Mac Pro, you could just buy an SSD. They're around $200, so you can get like a 512 gigabyte SSD for like close to $200. And then for all your old backup images or just images that are sitting in your hard drive that you want to offload, you can now buy 8 terabyte hard drives for $140. So for things that are just kind of sitting there that you're not actively working on, offload those off onto the 8 terabyte hard drives. So that would be my suggestion, and to not spend the money on this crazy expensive computer. And then as far as the display goes, I think photographers are most excited about the display here because displays do matter.
Well, that's
to us.
kind of part of the thing with the Apple. Like, so for a long time, Apple had that great cinema display,
Mhm.
and then they didn't really follow up on that for a while. And there was a long time there where they didn't even have a display. So
Yeah, I
like,
think the last one they had was that Thunderbolt, the LED display.
yeah, and that was a good one.
It
But
was.
like, now that we want 4K, 5K,
Right.
8K resolution, we want to be able to see more pixels. It's nice that they're coming out with something better, but it's gonna be very costly, right?
Even the stand is, I think the stand's close to $1,000.
That was a big
Just for
headline.
the stand.
Yeah.
The stand was $1,000.
Yes.
And then
Yeah.
the monitor's another like $4,000 or $5,000.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a very expensive screen to be looking at. If you buy something like that, you've got to think that you're going to have it for a significant amount of time.
I secretly watched a couple of these videos on YouTube of like nerdy guys like putting the screen onto the stand though, and it's really cool how magnetic
Yeah.
it is.
I mean, it is Apple. It's cool.
Yeah,
I don't know.
But yeah, instead of buying this display, like the biggest thing for photographers is that you want the display to be calibrated properly so your prints turn out good. So
Right.
instead of buying this crazy expensive display, just print your photos regularly. Like pick like one day every 6 months, one day every month, where you order a bunch of 8x10s, compare that to your screen. You can do a manual calibration to make sure everything's lining up.
Or get a tool. I mean, like I have the spider tool for my.
Yeah, me too.
And that works pretty well. I mean, it's not perfect, but if you calibrate your monitor maybe once a month, you're going to be pretty close.
Yeah, shell out $50 to $100 for a calibrator for your screen. Make sure the screen brightness is.
I have
good
the Spider Pro. Which one do you have?
Yeah, Spider Pro.
the
It's like an
Spider
older
Pro.
version.
I
But
think that one's
it's
the
not
most popular one. There's another
Yeah.
one that's something monkey.
There's like a cube one too. I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, so there's a couple different
Yeah.
options out there. if you
I
do
like
a
the
little
spider
research.
stuff.
But yeah, we just all use
Yeah,
the Spider.
if you're ever concerned about how your images look, just order a bunch of prints and look at them all and compare them.
Yeah, and then obviously you calibrate your monitor based off those prints, and then the next time I'll be like, okay, well this is close. I'm gonna tweak it a little more. You'll get it dialed in.
Yeah. So, bottom line, if you're a photographer, spend this money on a trip. Spend it on like a medium format camera. Like honestly, just go out and like buy like I would rather buy a crazy expensive camera than a crazy expensive.
So do you think
computer.
there's any photographers that could actually benefit from it at all?
I don't see any use case where this would benefit a photographer. Videographers, definitely, but not photographers. Can you, Corey? You're kind of more in the commercial world than me. But
I mean, you need some big files. Like, what's the biggest files that you make? Like doing like maybe a composite with a bunch of photos.
3 or 4 gigs.
3 or 4 gigs. I
Yeah.
mean, you can handle that still on. I can handle that on my iMac.
I think it'd be kind of overkill for solely photography purposes, but I don't know.
If you had the money though,
Yeah.
you wanted the fastest, coolest looking computer. That one's pretty cool.
yeah, it's there's a lot of thought put into that design. But think about how much money you're going to be spending on that, and if that's going to make you have to take on like jobs you don't want to take on.
Yeah,
stuff
and
like
also
that.
realize that a machine like that was made more for commercial purposes, and it's not as much made for like a local business or a single individual's use.
It's made for movie studios. Those guys shell out thousands and thousands on like computer monitors.
Yeah, they have like racks and
Yeah.
racks of servers to do it all. So like to them, that's still an inexpensive computer.
Yeah. All right, so we have Canon trying to fix their life.
Man, Canon's had some setbacks. in the last few
I mean,
years,
so
huh?
I've been reading all these rumors this week, and it really seems like they're trying to fix up the shop here. So there's rumors of a 75 megapixel Canon EOS RS coming. So they're trying to up Sony on the
Still
megapixels.
the DSLR though?
Yeah.
Huh.
No, it's not
Oh, it'd be
DSLR. Sorry,
mirrorless.
mirrorless. Yeah, EOS RS, which is kind of
RS.
just a confusing name.
EOS
Yeah.
RS.
So with that one.
Say that up.
It's a
Yeah.
mouthful.
Yeah, with that one, we're getting the specs are rumored at 75 megapixels, dual card slots. All the cameras coming out, next are going to have dual card slots. It's rumored, so that's a one up. I feel like a lot of photographers aren't moving over to the Canon mirrorless system who are shooting Canon because they can't get dual card slots.
Well, especially if you're like a pro and you're shooting it for a living and you need the photos no matter what, you have to have some kind of backup system.
Yeah, and so. Everybody's saying that the EOS R Mark II, not only the high megapixel camera, but the regular Mark II is coming out like almost just over a year, pretty soon here, maybe like just a little bit over a year after the first one. It might not be doing so good. But yeah, I think the most exciting thing about these new cameras being rumored is this dual card slots and dynamic range, which is, part of the, like the reason I switched away from Canon was for to get more features like dual card slots, without paying a premium, and to get more dynamic range out of files. So if they finally catch up on dynamic range with these new sensors and finally add dual card slots to all their mirrorless cameras, then I think photographers will start switching over a little bit more. So
yeah, never say never. You never know if you go back to Canon or not. But like at this point, a lot of photographers that left Canon invested in other systems, and they might not one. It's
Yeah.
throwback. I mean,
Yeah, Corey, looking out, you know, you're kind of on the outside because you've been shooting Nikon for so many years,
Right.
and so you've never, I don't think you were as tempted to switch over to Sony like I was, because they give you like, you know, like great features. They don't hold back on this stuff. Does any of this kind of like appeal to you? Do you have any thoughts about the?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's gonna be a pretty sweet camera once it's all said and done. And if I were just getting into photography, or if I was like a prosumer or something, I think that'd be kind of alluring. And a good segue to get into mirrorless, because I feel like once you are on, this is like they're going to be their second generation of their mirrorless camera, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like they'll start to get the kinks worked out and really start to kind of dial things in.
Line for lenses too.
Yeah.
They have a couple interesting lenses. I'm not gonna lie. I say Canon has
85 1.2, 50
Well,
millimeter 1.2.
that's zoom ones too, right? There's a
the 70 to 200.
24 to 70 f2.
Yeah, and they
That
just released the
sounds pretty
7200, which is really small. It's a
Yeah,
lot-
I saw that. It's
yeah.
a little more compact.
Yeah, I mean,
so-
when you zoom out, then
it's still
pops
unicorn white though.
out.
still unicorn
You really don't
white.
like that.
Ah, it just drives me crazy.
Stormtrooper lens.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
just want my lenses to be black or silver.
Yeah. I mean, they say it's for heat retention or like.
yeah, I'm sure
lack of-
there's some sort of
yeah.
use for it, and everybody sees it and they're like, "Oh, that's the Canon one. It's white."
Yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
if you're out in the Serengeti, I guess your black lens might get hot. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't shoot
know.
out in the Serengeti. That's not something I've done before. Anyway, yeah, it's a bummer about Nikon. Hopefully, you won't have any camera
Yeah.
problems.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, Corey.
Yeah,
Rest in peace.
don't know why that happened.
Yeah, headline Nikon's dying. Oh my god.
Try and repair it myself.
Well, no, but seriously, I'm joking around. But thank you for coming out and doing
Yeah.
the podcast with us. You're an awesome photographer. I appreciate your work. I appreciate all your car photos. I appreciate your beautiful pictures of Von Miller's face, because I'm a huge Broncos fan. I'm not really a Broncos fan, but I just thought it was cool.
Fooled me.
But
I didn't even know who Von Miller was.
Kill me.
But yeah, I have a second Instagram up, Nick J Sparks. Go check it out. Personal work every couple of days or every day. Whenever I go shoot, I'm making it a point to take photos and making it a point to post to Instagram all the time. There's going to be maybe some short form video over there too. So Nick J Sparks. My second YouTube channel is /Nick Sparks. Go check that out. And yeah, did you guys have anything else you wanted to plug?
Thanks for having me. It was
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
Photo
Thanks, man.
footage.